everyone, I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. China says it's canceling preferential import duties on over 100 Taiwanese goods. Affected items include lubricating oils and other chemical products. China had reduced duties on these products as part of a trade deal with Taiwan in 2010. But China says Taiwan has imposed what it calls discriminatory bans and restrictions on Chinese products. China and Taiwan have seen heightened trade friction on top of political and military tensions in recent years. China has banned a range of Taiwanese goods, including chemicals and agricultural products. Bad news for shoppers as Taiwan's inflation looks set to beat the government's target for the third year in a row. This year's Consumer Price Index, which measures the change in prices of consumer goods, was revised just over the inflation warning level of 2%. That's despite the government projecting GDP growth of nearly 4% this year, the highest in 3 years. Consumers may see prices rise for eating out, rent, and medical expenses, but Taiwan Statistics Office says the overall increase is not too high.
大家每天在碰到的一个品项就会比较说涨的幅度比较大啊，所以大家就会觉得说，哎，你的物价还是偏高啊。但是事实上，如果整个平均下来，其实是应该可以维持在2点多出头。
Taiwan's Premier Zhuo Rongtai says many concerns remain over a controversial reform bill passed by the legislature. But he says the legislative and executive branches of government could work together to resolve differences. Zhuo says many are worried about the separation of powers and citizens' rights after Taiwan's main opposition parties passed the bill, giving the legislature greater powers to investigate government officials and citizens. It led to scuffles in the legislature and street protests. Electric car maker Tesla says it wants a supply chain for parts that doesn't run through China or Taiwan. That's according to a Nikkei report. Nikkei says the company is worried about cross-strait tensions in the run-up to the U.S. presidential election in November. The report said Tesla wants parts like circuit boards and displays to be made outside of China or Taiwan as soon as next year, except for cars sold on the Chinese market. Strokes are one of Taiwan's leading killers, taking thousands of lives each year. And as Zhang Bentrius reports, the country's rapidly aging population and the climate crisis means strokes could become an even bigger public health problem.
Every 42 minutes on average, someone in Taiwan dies of a stroke. And some factors that put people at risk are getting worse. Strokes are the 5th leading cause of death in Taiwan. Doctors say there are 8 major risk factors: high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, irregular heartbeat, and then there's lack of exercise, obesity, smoking, and a family history.
如果你有这8个里面的3个的话，就表示其实真的是要注意了。那这个部分的结果是由脑中风医学会来综合国际上跟台湾的资料所提出的一个方法。
But these aren't the only risk factors. The majority of strokes happen in people over 65, and the risk goes up with age. This year, close to 18% of the population is in this age bracket. And with Taiwan on track to become the country with one of the world's lowest fertility rates, that percentage can only rise. Then there is heat. Doctors say hot weather and the dehydration it causes make for another major risk.
因为温度高，我们身上的水分散失，有时候呢，你没有补充水分的话，它血液比较粘稠，可能对于这个血管阻塞呢来讲是比较不利。
And Taiwan is only going to get hotter as the years pass. Early in April, the Environment and Science Ministries warned that the country could see summer temperatures for 7 months of the year if nothing is done about global carbon emissions. With these risk factors getting worse, doctors say it's crucial to be alert to signs of a stroke and to mitigate the other risk factors before it's too late. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Despite government efforts, Taiwan continues to earn its reputation as a pedestrian hell. The country recorded 119 pedestrian deaths during the first quarter of the year, up by more than 15% from last year. More than 70% of those killed were elderly people. New traffic rules were introduced last year intended to make streets safer for pedestrians. That's after CNN referred to traffic in Taiwan as a living hell in 2022. but figures show the number of traffic accidents and traffic-related deaths is on the decline overall. Doctors could soon have a new tool to fight Alzheimer's disease, as Taiwan's Chinese Medicine Research Center has found a promising treatment. The National Research Institute ran tests on mice and found that their new formula removed plaques from their brains and helped reduce brain inflammation. The animals then performed better on memory tests. The center also ran a small clinical trial that found the formula improved cognition and memory in people with mild to moderate Alzheimer's. The treatment needs further tests and larger-scale clinical trials before it can be approved. Alzheimer's case numbers in Taiwan are expected to rise as the country's population rapidly ages. The National Palace Museum in Taiwan is planning to mark its centenary next year. But as Chris Gorin reports, the museum's history is as complicated as Taiwan itself.
The National Palace Museum, one of the largest, oldest, and most famous institutions in Taiwan. And it's about to celebrate an important anniversary, 100 years since its founding.
2025年，明年的话就是故宫整个故宫历史的100年，全新的思维，去创造故宫，然后让故宫成为一个不仅是台湾的故宫、亚洲的故宫，也是一个世界的故宫。
The museum is planning special events and exhibits next year to mark the occasion, while continuing work on additions and extensions to be finished by 2027. However, there is a caveat to next year's centenary. The date they are celebrating is not the establishment of the museum here in Taipei, which opened in 1965, but rather when it first opened to the public in 1925 in the Forbidden City, the former Chinese imperial palace in the heart of Beijing, next to Tiananmen Square. The Palace Museum in China is one of the country's biggest tourist attractions. Every year, millions of people visit the massive complex of buildings and courtyards where China's emperors once lived, but without most of the art treasures of the imperial collection. Those priceless artifacts were brought to Taiwan by the defeated nationalist government in the late 1940s after the Chinese Civil War. The result is that the world's greatest collection of imperial Chinese art is held in Taipei, and the National Palace Museum says it still makes sense to date itself from its founding in Beijing.
国立故宫博物院，它记载的就是从1925年，只不过当时它是在北京紫禁城里面，然后经过了多次因为战争，它的迁移、辗转，基本上这些东西都是在目前在台湾我们中华民国的政府。那时候所做的，包括这个名称一直维持到现在，所以到明年这个名称、这个实体、这个政府，它还是100年。
The museum is one of many institutions whose name and history date back to the period when the Republic of China controlled mainland China. And while much of the museum's collection is focused on the history of China, museum staff say they are conscious that Taiwan's history isn't only rooted there.
那从最早都没有汉人来之前，他是原住民，这一点不可否认嘛。原住民的文化，汉人能把它遗忘吗？当然不可以啊。中华从1949年正式过来的时候，那些文化就是台湾的其中一个文化，我们必须用这种方式来想这个文化的种类，它的多元性。
The museum remains popular with both foreign and domestic tourists. The centennial of its founding may provide an opportunity for curators and visitors alike to reflect not only on the priceless art held within its walls, but also how those walls came to be. Alex Chun and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
With the Olympics just a few months away, Taiwanese weightlifter Fang Wanling is getting ready to pull some serious weight. But when she grabs the barbell in Paris, she'll also be shouldering the hopes of her nation. Sandy Chi reports.
Taiwanese Olympian Fang Wanling can lift well over her own body weight. She's training at a high school in southern Taiwan ahead of the Paris Summer Games. And with young athletes watching, she's keenly aware of the example she's setting.
他是我的偶像，因为可以在练习的时候近距离看到偶像的感觉真的很不一样。然后他练习的时候就是 很震撼。
The summer in Paris, it'll be more than her fellow trainees paying attention. When Fang steps onto the lifting platform in August, all of Taiwan will be watching. It's a lot of pressure for someone who never wanted to be a weightlifter.
我以前是想要当舞者啦。
It was a dream she gave up for the prize money she could win by weightlifting. Fang is a member of Taiwan's Indigenous Stowe community. She grew up in poverty in a single-parent household in the mountains of Jiayi in southern Taiwan. When her athleticism caught the attention of strength coaches at age 13, she pursued weightlifting to provide for her mother.
我教他还没有他动作学快，加上他不畏惧啊，他不害怕，他很爱挑战你，加多少他还是给你敢试。跟上哦。
While Fang trained and her performance improved, an injury outside the gym almost ended her career. At age 18, just before her first Asian Games in 2018, Fang was in a scooter accident, which almost snapped her knee ligament.
那时候就很两难，你要我放手，我真的不甘心，因为那时候选的过程真的就是太辛苦了。 我不想要对不起，就这6年来就是这么期待这一场比赛的我。
Fang continued to live through her injury, and it took a toll on her body.
因为没有搭配在最好的时期去做就是修复，所以导致他这边受伤，另外一只脚也跟着受伤。那你2个膝盖受伤完，就会引起你的腰也受伤，腰部受伤，核心就会晃动，又引起我们肩关节受伤。
Her injuries affected her performance. She qualified for the 2020 Tokyo Summer Games, but took 4th place. After that, she decided to take some time off and recover. The gap year meant she couldn't earn prize money and couldn't support her sick mother. At one point, Fang almost gave up weightlifting to take on a full-time job.
除非我成绩，不然的话，我没有钱。 可以就是去负担妈妈的一些就是在住院所需要的开销。
However, thanks to Coach Lin and financial support from the government, she was able to start her lifting career again. This summer, she hopes to show them that their faith in her will be rewarded.
那我也准备好了，不管是我的身体、我的内心，就是我们想要让它变得更强壮。 就是让我可以用更好的姿态去让我被大家看见。
With just a few months left before the Summer Olympics, Fang is training relentlessly. When she grabs the bar, clinches, then explodes in Paris, she'll be shouldering the expectations of the country and her fans. Howard Zhang, Leslie Liao, and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
A scenic spot in Miaoli is getting ready to bloom. Local officials have planted more than 30,000 lilies at the Holong Cape of Good Hope, a famous seaside park in northern Taiwan. The indigenous Formosan lily has been gradually disappearing because of climate change, and the park is trying to revitalize the flowers along with Easter lilies. The flowers will bloom through July, and officials hope they will attract more tourists to the area. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, the Shiseido Tahiti Pro event has wrapped up in French Polynesia, with local surfer Vahine Fierro coming out on top. She's a favorite for gold at this year's Paris Olympics. I'm Ethan. Take care, and I'll see you next time.